Wealthy businessman sees Waitress helping his autistic son. What he does next shocks everyone. Marcus Thompson adjusts his Armani tie as he steps into the Golden Diner, his 8-year-old son Jake clinging to his arm. The tech billionaire's BMW sits outside like a diamond among pebbles. Inside, fluorescent lights buzz over cracked vinyl booths and worn linoleum floors. Jake suddenly freezes at their table, his body beginning to rock rhythmically. The familiar signs of an autistic meltdown start brewing. Other diners begin to stare, whispers floating through the air like poison. Then she appears. A young waitress, maybe 22, with tired eyes but a genuine smile. Her name tag reads Sarah. Her uniform is faded, her sneakers have holes, but something about her presence immediately shifts the atmosphere. She approaches Jake with a calmness that stops Marcus cold. What happens next will shatter everything this powerful man believes about worth, intelligence, and the true meaning of strength. But Marcus has no idea that this simple waitress is about to teach him the most expensive lesson of his life. The contrast couldn't be more stark. Marcus owns 3 homes, each worth more than most people see in a lifetime. His daily decisions affect thousands of employees across Silicon Valley. Yet here he sits, completely helpless as his son's distress escalates. Jake's stimming intensifies. He flaps his hands frantically, high-pitched sounds escaping his throat. A businessman at the corner booth loudly complains to his companion about disrupting his lunch. An elderly woman shakes her head in disapproval, muttering something about proper parenting. Marcus feels the familiar burn of shame creeping up his neck. He's faced hostile takeovers, board meetings from hell, and media scrutinies. But nothing, absolutely nothing, makes him feel more powerless than these public meltdowns. Sarah doesn't rush over with false cheerfulness like most service workers do. Instead, she observes quietly from behind the counter, her expression thoughtful rather than judgmental. She wipes her hands on her apron, a simple gesture that somehow radiates competence. When she finally approaches, she doesn't address Marcus first. She doesn't even look at him. Her entire focus centers on Jake, as if the crying child is the most important person in the restaurant. "Hey there," she says softly, crouching down to Jake's eye level. Her voice carries a musical quality that cuts through the chaos. "I see you're having a tough time." Jake's rocking slows slightly. Something in Sarah's tone, patient, understanding, devoid of pity, reaches him in a way that Marcus's frantic reassurances never could. The other diners continue their whispered commentary. A mother pulls her own child closer, as if autism might be contagious. But Sarah creates an invisible bubble around their table, a sanctuary where judgment cannot penetrate. Marcus watches, stunned. In 30 seconds, this young woman has accomplished what expensive therapists struggle with during hour-long sessions. She hasn't used any special techniques or professional jargon. She's simply present, authentically present, in a way that speaks directly to Jake's overwhelmed nervous system. What Marcus doesn't realize is that Sarah's ability comes from a place of profound personal experience. Experience that would humble his assumptions about intelligence, education, and social worth. The revelation waiting ahead will turn his worldview completely upside down. Jake's meltdown reaches its peak intensity. Tears stream down his flushed cheeks as he covers his ears, overwhelmed by the restaurant's sensory assault. The clinking silverware, overlapping conversations, and harsh lighting create a perfect storm for his hypersensitive system. Marcus tries everything he's learned from countless therapy sessions. He speaks in calm, measured tones. He offers Jake his favorite fidget toy, a small cube that usually provides comfort. He attempts the breathing exercises their behavioral specialist recommended. Nothing works. The pressure mounts from every direction. The businessman's complaints grow louder, deliberately projected for maximum discomfort. "Some people have no consideration for others," he announces to his lunch companion, ensuring everyone hears his verdict. A group of teenagers at a nearby booth starts recording with their phones, giggling about creating content for social media. Marcus feels his protective instincts flare, but he can't leave Jake to confront them. "Maybe you should take him outside," suggests the elderly woman, her tone dripping with condescension. "Until he calms down." Each comment feels like a physical blow. Marcus Thompson, who's been featured on Fortune magazine's cover, who's delivered keynote speeches to thousands, who's negotiated billion-dollar deals, crumbles under the weight of public judgment. His hands shake slightly as he reaches for his phone, considering calling their driver to escape this nightmare. The familiar taste of failure fills his mouth, a flavor he rarely experiences in his professional life, but knows intimately as Jake's father. Jake's stimming becomes more intense. He begins hitting his head with his palms, a self-soothing behavior that horrifies onlookers but provides him necessary sensory input. Marcus gently tries to redirect his son's hands, but Jake pulls away, his distress deepening. The restaurant manager approaches, his expression apologetic but firm. I understand this is difficult, but other customers are complaining. That's when Sarah steps forward. Not hurriedly, not dramatically, but with quiet confidence that immediately changes the energy around their table. She doesn't ask permission or offer explanations. She simply begins doing something that will demonstrate a level of understanding that Marcus never imagined possible from someone he's already dismissed as intellectually inferior. Sarah pulls a napkin from her apron pocket, already creased and soft from previous use. Without saying a word, she begins sketching with a blue ballpoint pen. Not random doodles, but deliberate, precise patterns. Circles within circles. Perfect geometric spirals. Mathematical sequences that flow across the paper like visual music. Jake's head hitting gradually slows. His eyes, red from crying, begin tracking Sarah's pen movements. The patterns seem to speak a language he understands on a cellular level. Fibonacci sequences calm him, she murmurs, more to herself than to Marcus. The mathematical predictability provides neural organization. Marcus blinks hard. How does a diner waitress know about Fibonacci sequences? More importantly, how does she know exactly what Jake needs when licensed professionals often struggle to connect with him? Sarah continues drawing, her movements hypnotic and methodical. She creates interlocking patterns that seem to mirror the way Jake's mind processes information. Each curve and line appears calculated to provide maximum visual comfort. Your son sees the world in patterns, she explains quietly, never breaking her artistic flow. Most people see chaos where he sees beautiful mathematical order. Jake's breathing begins to regulate. The violent rocking transforms into gentle swaying. His hands stop their frantic flapping and instead begin tracing Sarah's patterns in the air, following the invisible mathematics she's made visible. The restaurant's harsh sounds seem to fade into background noise. Other diners stop their complaints, transfixed by the unexpected tableau unfolding before them. Even the recording teenagers lower their phones, sensing something profound happening. Marcus watches in amazement as his son's face relaxes for the first time in hours. Jake's eyes meet Sarah's briefly, eye contact that usually takes months of therapy to achieve with new people. Better? Sarah asks softly. Jake nods, still focused on the patterns. He reaches tentatively toward the napkin, and Sarah gently places it in his hands. He holds it like a precious artifact, his thumb tracing the mathematical spirals. But something in Sarah's expression suggests this interaction means more to her than simple kindness to a struggling child. There's a familiarity in her movements, a practiced ease that speaks of deep personal experience rather than professional training. Marcus has no idea he's witnessing expertise born from heartbreak, or that this young woman's understanding comes from a source that will soon shatter every assumption he's made about intelligence, worth, and the true meaning of sacrifice. The transformation is remarkable. Jake sits calmly now, occasionally glancing at Sarah's patterns while nibbling French fries. The restaurant returns to normal volume, crisis averted by this mysterious young woman's intervention. Marcus studies Sarah as she refills their water glasses. Her movements are efficient, practiced, but there's something else, an intelligence in her eyes that doesn't match his preconceptions about diner employees. "That was impressive," he says, his tone inadvertently condescending. "Where did you learn to do that?" Sarah's smile tightens almost imperceptibly. "Experience," she answers simply. Marcus pulls out his wallet, extracting several $100 bills. This is for you, he says, pressing the money toward her. And I mean it. That was really something special for a... He pauses, searching for the right words. For someone in your position to know. The phrase hangs in the air like smoke. Someone in your position. The words reveal everything about Marcus's worldview. His assumption that intelligence correlates with economic status, that education equals worth, that a uniform defines capability. Sarah accepts the money with practiced grace, but something shifts in her demeanor. The warmth in her eyes cools slightly, replaced by a dignity that Marcus completely misses. Thank you, sir, she says quietly, tucking the bills into her apron. I hope Jake has a better day. As they prepare to leave, Jake tugs on Sarah's sleeve. Can I come back and see more patterns? He asks, his voice clearer than it's been all day. Of course, sweetheart, Sarah responds, her genuine affection evident. I'll have new ones ready for you. Marcus feels a strange mixture of gratitude and discomfort. This young woman has accomplished something extraordinary, yet he can't shake the feeling that he's somehow still in control of the situation. After all, he's the one with the money, the power, the education. He has no idea that Sarah possesses credentials that would put his own expensive MBA to shame. He can't imagine that her experience includes research that could revolutionize autism treatment. He's completely blind to the possibility that the person he's just patronized might be more qualified than anyone he's ever hired. The truth waiting ahead will strip away every comfortable assumption he's built about success, intelligence, and human worth. But for now, Marcus leaves the Golden Diner feeling benevolent, believing he's just helped a simple waitress have a better day. Over the following 3 weeks, Jake asks to return to the Golden Diner every few days. What started as an emergency stop has become an anticipated ritual. Marcus initially resists. The diner hardly matches his usual dining standards, but Jake's dramatic improvement after each visit makes the decision easy. Sarah seems to anticipate their arrival. She always has fresh patterns ready, each one more complex than the last. Geometric mandalas that help Jake focus. Sequential number patterns that calm his anxiety. Visual puzzles that challenge his remarkable pattern recognition abilities. She's developed an entire communication system built around Jake's strengths rather than his challenges. When he can't verbally express his needs, she shows him symbol cards. When he's overwhelmed by too many choices, she presents options in mathematical sequences he can easily process. Marcus watches these interactions with growing fascination and confusion. Sarah demonstrates techniques he's never seen from Jake's expensive behavioral therapists. She intuitively understands sensory needs that took professionals months to identify. You're really good with him, Marcus comments one afternoon, his tone still carrying subtle condescension. Have you worked with special needs children before? Sarah's hands pause briefly in her napkin sketching. Something like that, she answers, not meeting his eyes. Marcus interprets her reluctance to elaborate as modesty, or perhaps embarrassment about her limited experience. He can't imagine any other explanation for her remarkable abilities. In his worldview, real expertise comes with degrees, credentials, and expensive price tags. He begins treating Sarah like a talented but untrained natural, praising her instincts while subtly suggesting she could really go somewhere with proper education. His compliments are tinged with the assumption that she's reached her ceiling in life, that working at the diner represents her full potential. You know, he says one day, there are some great community college programs for child development. I could probably help you get enrolled. Sarah's smile becomes strained. That's very kind, Mr. Thompson, she replies carefully. What Marcus doesn't see is the doctorate degree hanging in a frame in Sarah's small apartment. He can't imagine the research papers she's published, the conferences where she's presented groundbreaking findings, or the academic opportunities she sacrificed for reasons he's never bothered to ask about. He's so blinded by his own prejudices that he can't recognize genius when it's serving him coffee and creating miracles with his son. The Thursday afternoon starts differently. Jake has been looking forward to seeing Sarah all week, talking excitedly about showing her a new pattern he discovered in his math workbook. But as they approach the diner's entrance, Jake suddenly stops dead in his tracks. A construction crew is working on the sidewalk outside. Jackhammers pound concrete into dust. Diesel engines roar. The cacophony of industrial noise creates the perfect storm for sensory overload. Jake's hands fly to his ears, but the damage is already done. His nervous system shifts into emergency mode faster than Marcus has ever seen. Within seconds, Jake is on the ground, curled in a fetal position, screaming with an intensity that cuts through even the construction noise. Passers-by stop and stare. Some pull out phones, not to call for help, but to record. A woman with a stroller quickly crosses to the other side of the street, pulling her toddler along. "Stay away from that child!" she warns loudly. Marcus kneels beside his son, feeling completely helpless. Jake's meltdown is beyond anything their usual calming techniques can handle. The public setting makes everything worse. Every stare feels like a judgment, every whisper like an accusation. "Should we call an ambulance?" someone asks. "Maybe call social services," another voice suggests. "That kid doesn't look safe." The implications hit Marcus like physical blows. He's faced hostile corporate takeovers with more composure than this. Board meetings filled with adversaries have never made him feel so vulnerable. But watching his son suffer, while strangers question his parenting, strips away every defense he's built. That's when Sarah appears. Not in her uniform, but in casual clothes, jeans, a Harvard University sweatshirt that Marcus barely notices, and worn sneakers. She's not working today, but something has drawn her outside. She doesn't ask permission or offer explanations. Instead, she lies down on the concrete beside Jake, matching his position exactly. She begins humming, not a random tune, but a mathematical sequence converted to sound. Each note follows a precise pattern that seems to resonate with Jake's overwhelmed nervous system. The humming creates a bubble of calm around them. Jake's screaming gradually subsides into quiet sobs. His rigid body begins to relax as Sarah's musical mathematics work their magic. "How did you know to do that?" Marcus asks, his voice shaking with emotion and confusion. Sarah's response stops him cold. "Because my little brother used to have meltdowns just like this." The word "used" hangs in the air like a revelation waiting to explode. Marcus stares at this young woman, lying on dirty concrete, wearing a Harvard sweatshirt he somehow missed noticing, demonstrating techniques that no textbook could teach. For the first time, he begins to suspect that everything he believes about Sarah might be devastatingly wrong. The construction noise fades as workers take their lunch break. Jake sits up slowly, still holding onto the napkin with Sarah's patterns from their previous visit. His breathing returns to normal as Sarah continues her mathematical humming, each note precisely calculated to provide neurological comfort. "Your brother?" Marcus asks carefully, sensing he's stepping into emotionally dangerous territory. Sarah's expression shifts, revealing depths of pain that Marcus has never noticed before. The casual mask she wears during their diner visits slips away, exposing raw grief underneath. "Tommy," she says simply, "he was 8 when he died, same age as Jake." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Suddenly, Sarah's expertise with his son takes on an entirely different meaning. This isn't theoretical knowledge or professional training. It's lived experience carved from heartbreak. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispers, the inadequacy of the words obvious even to him. "What happened?" Sarah helps Jake to his feet, brushing concrete dust from his clothes with practiced maternal care. "Complications from a seizure disorder that often comes with autism. We didn't catch it in time." Marcus watches her gentle movements, noting details he somehow missed during weeks of interaction. The way she anticipates Jake's needs isn't learned behavior. It's muscle memory developed through years of caring for Tommy. Her intuitive understanding comes from a source far more profound than any professional training. "He would have loved meeting Jake," Sarah continues, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tommy was fascinated by mathematical sequences too. Used to spend hours creating pattern books just like the ones I make for your son." The revelation recontextualizes every interaction they've had. Marcus realizes that Sarah's willingness to help Jake isn't charity or even kindness. It's a form of healing, a way to honor her brother's memory by helping another child like him thrive. The Harvard sweatshirt, Marcus says suddenly, pieces of a larger puzzle beginning to connect. Is that yours? Sarah's smile turns sad. Yeah. I studied there before. She trails off, leaving the sentence unfinished but heavy with implication. Before Tommy needed her, before family obligation called her away from academic pursuits, before she sacrificed her own future to care for someone who couldn't care for himself. Marcus feels something cold settling in his stomach. The generous tips, the condescending compliments, the assumptions about her potential. Every interaction suddenly feels tainted by his own prejudice and ignorance. Jake tugs on Sarah's hand. Will you make me a pattern for Tommy? He asks with the innocent wisdom that often accompanies autism. Sarah's eyes fill with tears, but she nods. I think he'd like that very much. Marcus stands there watching this exchange, beginning to understand that he's been profoundly wrong about everything. But the full scope of his misjudgment is yet to come. That evening, Marcus can't shake the image of Sarah in the Harvard sweatshirt, lying on concrete beside his son. The casual mention of her brother, the expert knowledge she demonstrated, the way she seemed to understand Jake's needs better than licensed professionals, it all points to something he's been too blind to see. Unable to concentrate on his usual evening routine, Marcus opens his laptop and begins searching. Sarah Martinez yields thousands of results, but adding Harvard and autism research narrows the field dramatically. The first result makes his coffee mug slip from nerveless fingers. Dr. Sarah Martinez, Neurological Research Fellow, Harvard Medical School. Breakthrough studies in autism spectrum communication patterns. The photograph shows Sarah, but not the tired waitress he knows. This Sarah wears professional attire, stands confidently beside research equipment, her eyes bright with academic purpose. The publication date is 3 years old. Marcus scrolls through her research papers with growing shock. Mathematical pattern recognition as therapeutic intervention for ASD children. Sensory integration through sequential visual processing. Novel communication strategies for nonverbal autism spectrum individuals. Every technique she's used with Jake is documented in her published work. The napkin patterns aren't intuitive kindness, they're scientifically developed therapeutic tools she pioneered herself. He finds her doctoral thesis, Bridging Neurotypical Neurodiverse Communication Through Mathematical Language Systems. The abstract describes exactly what she's been doing with Jake, but with clinical precision that reveals the depth of her expertise. Marcus discovers she was offered a full research position at Stanford, a collaboration opportunity with MIT, funding from the National Institute of Mental Health for a groundbreaking longitudinal study. Then the publications stop abruptly 2 years ago. More searching reveals the reason, a local news article about a tragic car accident. David and Maria Martinez killed by a drunk driver, survived by daughters Sarah, 20, a Harvard doctoral candidate, and son Thomas, 6, who has autism and requires full-time care. The pieces fall into place with devastating clarity. Sarah didn't choose to work at a diner. She sacrificed one of the most promising careers in autism research to care for Tommy. She gave up international recognition, financial security, and professional fulfillment to honor family obligation. Marcus continues reading, finding more heartbreaking details. Sarah withdrew from her doctoral program just months before defending her dissertation. She turned down research positions, grant opportunities, academic collaborations, everything he values in professional success, to care for a little boy who needed her. And when Tommy died, despite her sacrifices, she kept working at the diner, not from lack of ambition, but from grief too profound for immediate recovery. The woman he's been condescendingly encouraging to pursue community college programs holds more advanced degrees than he does. The waitress he's been tipping like a charity case has published research that could revolutionize autism treatment. Marcus stares at his laptop screen, feeling smaller than he ever has in his entire life. Marcus spends hours reading Sarah's research, each paper revealing new layers of her expertise. Her work isn't just academically impressive, it's revolutionary. She developed communication protocols that increase successful interaction rates with autistic children by 400%. Her mathematical pattern therapy shows neurological improvements that traditional methods rarely achieve. He finds video lectures she delivered at international conferences. Watching her speak with authority about autism research, seeing the respect she commands from world-renowned experts, makes their diner interactions feel like cruel parody. The most devastating discovery comes in a research proposal she submitted to the National Science Foundation just weeks before her parents' death. The project aimed to create a comprehensive intervention program combining her mathematical communication methods with sensory integration therapy. The potential impact was staggering. Thousands of families could have benefited from her work. The proposal was approved, full funding authorized. A team of graduate researchers assembled. Sarah was positioned to become the leading voice in autism research, potentially changing how society understands and supports neurodivergent individuals. She never started the project. Marcus finds her withdrawal letter, professionally worded but heavy with unspoken grief. Due to unexpected family obligations, I must respectfully decline this research opportunity. Family obligations. The clinical phrase barely captures the reality. A brilliant young woman choosing to sacrifice her life's work to care for an autistic little boy who had already lost his parents. More research reveals Tommy's story. Seizure disorders, communication challenges, behavioral difficulties that required constant supervision. Sarah became his guardian, his caregiver, his advocate, and his world. She fought insurance companies, navigated special education systems, and provided round-the-clock care while grieving her parents' death. Marcus discovers Tommy's obituary from 6 months ago. Beloved son and brother, survived by his devoted sister Sarah, who dedicated her life to his care and happiness. The sparse details hide years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and unconditional love. Finally, Marcus understands why Sarah can calm Jake's meltdowns with mathematical precision, why she knows exactly which sensory inputs will help versus harm, why her techniques surpass anything his expensive therapists have tried. She didn't learn these skills from textbooks or training programs. She developed them through lived experience, refined them through academic research, and perfected them through desperate love for a little boy who needed her more than the world needed her groundbreaking discoveries. The waitress he's been patronizing is literally the foremost expert on autism communication techniques. The young woman he's been offering career advice to has already achieved more in her field than he has in his. Marcus closes his laptop and stares at the wall, feeling the weight of his profound misjudgments. Tomorrow, he'll face Sarah again, but now he knows exactly how blind, arrogant, and condescending he's been. The question is whether she'll forgive him for treating genius like charity. Marcus arrives at the Golden Diner before opening time, knowing Sarah often comes in early to prep. He finds her in the back office, not counting register receipts as he expected, but grading what appear to be graduate-level research papers. The MIT collaboration, he says quietly from the doorway. Sarah looks up, her expression unreadable. The papers spread across the desk reveal she's been serving as an external reviewer for autism research studies, maintaining her academic connections even while serving coffee and eggs. "You researched me," she states. Not a question, not an accusation, just a simple observation tinged with resignation. "I had to understand how you knew so much about Jake's needs." Marcus steps into the small office, feeling like an intruder in her private world. "Dr. Martinez." Sarah's laugh holds no humor. "I haven't used that title in 2 years, Mr. Thompson. Hard to feel like a doctor when you're wiping tables and taking orders from people who assume you're intellectually inferior." The words hit their target perfectly. Marcus feels his face burn with shame, remembering every condescending comment, every generous tip delivered with subtle superiority, every suggestion that she could really go somewhere with proper education. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asks, though he already knows the answer makes him look even worse. "When?" Sarah stands facing him directly. "When you offered to help me get into community college. When you praised my natural instincts with special needs children. When you pressed hundreds of dollars into my hand like I should be grateful for your charity." Each example lands like a physical blow. Marcus realizes he never once asked about her background, her education, her life before the diner. He made assumptions based purely on her uniform and workplace, then built an entire narrative around his own superiority. "You want to know the truth, Mr. Thompson?" Sarah's voice remains steady, but tears begin flowing down her cheeks. "Every technique I've used with Jake comes from research I'll never get to complete. Every moment I spend helping your son reminds me of Tommy, what I could have done better, what I should have noticed sooner." She picks up a photograph from her desk. Tommy at age 7, grinning while showing off a pattern book remarkably similar to the ones she makes for Jake. "Tommy died because I was so focused on my research that I missed the signs of his seizure disorder. I was publishing papers about helping autistic children while failing to properly care for the one who needed me most." The confession seems to physically hurt her to voice. Marcus feels something break inside his chest. "Sarah, that's not—" "Don't you dare tell me it's not my fault!" she interrupts, steel entering her voice. "You don't get to offer me absolution when you spent weeks treating me like an uneducated charity case. You think your money makes you generous? Your condescension makes you kind?" The small office feels suffocating. Marcus realizes this conversation isn't just about his misjudgments. It's about Sarah's unresolved guilt, her grief, her sense of having failed the person who mattered most. "I see Tommy every time I look at Jake," she continues. "Helping your son is the only way I can honor my brother's memory. It's not charity, Mr. Thompson. It's penance." The silence stretches between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Sarah wipes her tears with the back of her hand, but more keep coming. Marcus watches this brilliant woman, a person whose research could have changed thousands of lives, blame herself for circumstances beyond anyone's control. "You think I chose this?" Sarah gestures around the cramped office, at the time sheets and inventory lists that have replaced research journals and academic papers. "You think I'm working here because I lack ambition or intelligence?" Marcus opens his mouth to protest, but Sarah continues, her voice gaining strength through raw honesty. "Tommy started having seizures 3 months after our parents died. Subtle ones at first. I thought they were just behavioral responses to trauma. I was so focused on maintaining my research schedule, on proving I could handle both academic work and guardianship, that I rationalized away the warning signs." She pulls out another photograph. Tommy, in a hospital bed, surrounded by medical equipment, his small face peaceful in sleep. "The night he died, I was reviewing manuscripts for the Journal of Autism Research, peer reviews that would have advanced my career. Tommy had what I thought was a normal bedtime meltdown in the next room. I was so absorbed in academic work that I didn't check on him for 2 hours." The confession hangs in the air, like smoke. Marcus finally understands that Sarah's expertise with Jake isn't just professional knowledge. It's survivor's guilt transformed into protective hypervigilance. "When I found him, it was too late. The seizure had lasted too long. If I had been paying attention instead of chasing academic glory, if I had prioritized being his sister over being a researcher." Her voice breaks completely. "The doctor said there was nothing I could have done, that his seizure disorder was undiagnosed and unpredictable. But they don't understand. I had published papers on comorbid conditions in autism. I knew seizures were a risk factor. I should have been watching for signs instead of watching for career opportunities." Marcus feels tears in his own eyes now. The weight of Sarah's self-imposed guilt, combined with his own shameful assumptions about her intelligence and potential, creates a perfect storm of regret. "Every day I work here, every order I take from people who assume I'm beneath them intellectually, is a reminder that brilliance means nothing if you fail the people who need you most." Sarah looks directly at him. "You've been treating me like a charity case, Mr. Thompson. But the truth is, I don't deserve anything better." The final piece of the puzzle clicks into place for Marcus. Sarah isn't working at the diner because she lacks options. She's punishing herself for what she perceives as the ultimate professional and personal failure. "Sarah," Marcus whispers, "you're wrong about everything." Marcus drops to his knees in the small office, a gesture so unexpected that Sarah steps backward in shock. The powerful CEO who commands boardrooms and controls billion-dollar decisions prostrates himself before a woman he's spent weeks condescending to. Please forgive me, he says, his voice breaking with emotion. Not for misunderstanding your credentials or your intelligence. Though those mistakes are unforgivable, forgive me for being so blind to your pain that I made it worse with every interaction. Sarah stares down at him, confusion replacing anger. She's never seen Marcus show vulnerability, never imagined this confident businessman capable of genuine humility. I need to tell you something about Jake that I've never told anyone, Marcus continues, still kneeling. Before you came into our lives, I was paying strangers to care for him, because I was too ashamed to be seen with him in public, too embarrassed by his meltdowns to take him places other fathers take their sons. The admission costs him everything. Years of carefully constructed public image, the pretense of being a devoted father, the narrative he's built around his own character, all of it crumbles in this moment of absolute honesty. You think you failed Tommy by prioritizing your career? I was actively failing Jake every single day. I hired caregivers so I wouldn't have to deal with his autism. I scheduled meetings during his therapy sessions so I wouldn't have to face other parents' judgment. I was ashamed of my own son. Sarah's anger begins shifting to something more complex. Recognition of shared guilt, mutual failure, parallel paths of self-recrimination. The first time I watched you with Jake, I wasn't just impressed by your techniques. I was devastated by your love. You showed him more genuine care in 5 minutes than I had shown him in months. A stranger demonstrated better parenting than his own father. Marcus looks up at Sarah, his eyes red with tears and shame. You lost everything to care for Tommy. I had everything and still failed Jake. You sacrificed a brilliant career for love. I sacrificed love for a mediocre career managing what other people built. The comparison hangs between them. Two adults who believe they've failed the children in their care, but for opposite reasons. Sarah's guilt comes from loving too little soon enough. Marcus's from loving too little, period. Every technique you've taught me, every moment of patience you've shown Jake, every pattern you've drawn. You've been showing me how to be the father he deserves, not through professional instruction, but through modeling the kind of selfless love I never knew I was capable of. Sarah remains standing, but her posture softens slightly. The defensive anger that carried her through the confrontation begins giving way to recognition of Marcus's genuine transformation. I don't deserve your forgiveness for treating you as intellectually inferior, Marcus continues. But I'm begging for your help in becoming the father Jake needs. Not because I have money to pay you, but because you're the only person who's shown me what unconditional love for an autistic child actually looks like. Marcus rises slowly, pulling a thick folder from his briefcase. Documents he's been preparing since learning Sarah's true identity. His hands shake as he spreads the papers across her desk, pushing aside the graduate research reviews she'd been working on. This isn't charity, and it's not pity, he begins, his voice steady with conviction. This is a formal proposal for the Sarah Martinez Center for Autism Research and Innovation. Full funding for 5 years, complete research autonomy, and a staff budget large enough to attract the best minds in neurodivergent studies. Sarah's eyes widen as she scans the documents. The budget figures are staggering, more funding than most university programs see in a decade. But what catches her attention are the specific research priorities listed: mathematical pattern communication, sensory integration protocols, family support systems. You want to hire me? She asks, disbelief coloring her voice. I want to partner with you, Marcus corrects. Not as employer and employee, but as collaborators. Your expertise leading the research direction. My resources making it possible. The center would be yours to run as you see fit. He points to a specific clause in the contract. Complete academic freedom. Publish whatever you want. Present at any conferences. Collaborate with any institutions. The only requirement is that you help me learn to be a better father to Jake. Sarah studies the organizational chart he's included. Her name appears at the top as Director of Research, with positions for graduate fellows, postdoctoral researchers, and clinical specialists underneath. This is everything I gave up, she whispers, running her finger along the budget allocations for equipment and staffing. Everything I thought I'd lost forever. Not lost, Marcus says firmly. Delayed. Your research with Tommy, your sacrifice for him, your understanding of what families like ours face. That experience makes you more qualified now than you were 3 years ago. Textbook knowledge couldn't teach you what love and loss have. He pulls out another document, a memorial fund proposal. The Thomas Martinez Fellowship for Autism Research. Full scholarships for graduate students studying sensory processing disorders and seizure comorbidities. Tommy's name will be on every breakthrough we make. Sarah's composure finally breaks completely. She collapses into her desk chair, sobbing with a mixture of grief and hope she hasn't allowed herself to feel since Tommy's death. Why? She manages between tears. After how I spoke to you, after what I said. Because Jake needs you. Because hundreds of other children like Jake need you. Because Tommy's memory deserves to live on through research that prevents other families from experiencing what you endured. Marcus's voice grows stronger with each word. And because I need to prove that wealth can be used for something more meaningful than accumulating more wealth. He kneels beside her chair, no longer the condescending businessman, but a father desperate to do right by his son. Sarah, will you help me become worthy of Jake? Will you let me help you honor Tommy by changing how the world understands and supports autism? Sarah looks at him through her tears, seeing not the arrogant CEO who patronized her, but a man genuinely transformed by recognizing his own failures and her extraordinary strength. Yes, she whispers, for Jake, for Tommy, for all the children like them. 2 years later, the Sarah Martinez Center for Autism Research stands as a beacon of hope in downtown San Francisco. The gleaming facility houses cutting-edge research labs, sensory-friendly therapy rooms, and family support centers that serve over 800 families monthly. Jake, now 10, serves as the center's youngest ambassador. His mathematical pattern books have been adapted into therapeutic tools used worldwide. He speaks at conferences alongside Sarah, demonstrating how neurodivergent minds can thrive when understood rather than corrected. The Tommy Martinez Fellowship has funded breakthrough research in seizure prediction for autistic children, potentially saving thousands of lives. Sarah's team has developed early warning systems that could have saved her brother, a bittersweet victory that honors his memory through prevention. Marcus has become an unlikely advocate for autism acceptance, using his platform to challenge other executives about their assumptions and hiring practices. His company now employs over 50 neurodivergent individuals in specialized roles that utilize their unique cognitive strengths. The center's entrance displays a bronze plaque. In memory of Tommy Martinez, who taught us that different minds see the world's hidden patterns. In honor of every child who shows us that brilliance comes in countless forms. Jake traces the mathematical spirals carved around Tommy's name every morning, whispering, "Thank you," to the boy he never met, but whose legacy shaped his world. Comment below what touched you most about Sarah and Jake's story, subscribe for more inspiring tales, and hit like if you believe everyone deserves a second look.